Hi, I'm Tamara Zoner. Welcome to Spirit Cafe. Come in, sit down, and grab a cup of love. Welcome to another episode of Spirit Cafe. I'm Tamara Zoner, your humble host, and I'm so grateful that you're here. If you're enjoying this season of interviews and conversations, I invite you to please go and rate us on wherever you listen to your podcast. But specifically, it would be helpful if you could rate us and review us on iTunes, Spotify. And if you're watching, hit that like and subscribe button, please. And if you're benefiting from these conversations, from these interviews, from these inspiring stories, would you take a moment and share Spirit Cafe with a friend? I would sure appreciate it. Now, let's get on to the good stuff. Today, we are talking to Danielle Matthews, who at 23 was hit by a drunk driver and sustained a life-altering injury to her brain. She was told there was really no hope of recovery and that she was going to have to accept her new normal. It's a phrase I used a lot in the senior communities, but for a 23-year-old, ooh. So let's welcome to the program Danielle Matthews and let her tell us her story. Welcome, Danielle. It's
Oh,
so good to
thank
have you
you.
here on Spirit Cafe.
I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your journey?
My my journey had started 10 years ago. Life hit me head on. I was hit by a drunk driver when I was 23, and my world changed like in an instant, Tamara. And it took my life from one where I was, vibrant 23-year-old living life, fresh kind of out of college. I was living out in Colorado. I was doing Teach for America, so teaching every day, snowboarding on the weekends, like
Nice.
enjoying life. After my accident, I couldn't concentrate for more than 10 minutes at a time. I was dealing with severe migraines. I was sensitive to noise, to light, dizzy. I very clearly could not go back to work, ended up losing my job, and found myself living back at home in my mid 20s, unable to really know what my future was going to look like. And it was so interesting because the medical community didn't have options for me. They kind of said, hang in there, it'll probably clear up in a month. And then they said 3 months, and then they said 6 months. And at my 1 year appointment, I'll never forget, my neurologist said to me, look, Danielle, with your type of injury, your body's done all the healing it's going to do. And this is just your new normal. And you need to start shaping your life around your symptoms. And
Wow.
I'm so grateful because in that moment, something within me said, no way, you're fired. And I know now, it's like my higher self, my intuition, I mean, something within said, this isn't going to be your life, Danielle. You have way more to give in this life. And so when I left that appointment, I remembered thinking, no, I'm going to find an answer. But honestly, Tamara, it had been so hard because I look at life with like this simple equation. Okay. You've got the external world plus your internal response. And I believe that's what creates your reality.
Hmm.
And so many times we miss the fact that we have a choice in how we interact and react to things. And I had felt like a victim after my accident, and I was in a space where I had given all my power away to it, right? Because when you're in the space of a victim, like you have no ability to move anywhere.
Exactly.
And so I just said to myself, all right, Danielle, you've got new rules on this game of life. You got to figure out how to win still. You have to. And to me, winning is happiness. To me, winning is joy. It's to be able to be in the present moment and, feeling fulfilled. And I thought, all right, well, what can I do within these limitations?
Hmm.
And that opened me up into exploring different things. I found yogic philosophy, I found meditation, I found all these pieces that started to help me, honestly, to what I call have mind control and master my own thoughts so that I could start to create my reality in a different way.
I love it. I love that so much. And I do think that this is what I call like the sleepwalkers, right? The sleepwalkers who don't realize that they have so much control. And
Mm,
when we're living this sort of victim mentality, everything happens to me,
right.
we don't have the power to change and impact our lives like we do when we say, no, this is mine. This is
Yes.
I'm the creator, or depending on your beliefs, I'm the co-creator of
Right.
my experience and I get to decide.
Yes.
Yeah, I love that. And Were you very spiritual before the accident? I mean, you
No,
lived in
I would
Colorado, so I
actually
always
say I was
wonder.
an atheist. Like, before the accident, I would have said, my degree's in biology, right? So like I was totally wrapped up in, Darwin's theory and evolution and all of this and like, oh well, we're just here and then we're gone and that's it. Like,
Okay.
I remember it was so funny. I remember when I was 12, I had gotten confirmed. So I grew up like a Methodist.
Okay.
And I remember after my confirmation, I said to my parents, I said, well, guys, if I had been born somewhere else in the world, like we would have a different religion. So what makes this one right? And my parents didn't have an answer. And I said, okay, well, I don't want to go to church anymore. And I said, I want to kind of explore. And honestly, like in school, I took Hinduism. Like I really kind of explored these different religions. And I never quite landed on anything until after my accident when I heard some yogic teachings and the way that they looked at things. And I went, that's what I know. Because to me, it's like when I look at somebody, I see God. Like there's something I see within people. And I
Mhm.
always have since I was little and I never could explain it. Right. And this, the religion didn't answer those questions for me. And so, when I had a teacher tell me, she said, Danielle, think of it like the ocean. Like we are all the ocean. We come up as an expression, as a wave. And so when we are in this form of with a body, and we are in this wave-like form, we can experience the world, but we're connected, right? And a lot of times, and I think this is the difficulty that we all run into in life, is we forget the connection. We forget who we are and where we've come from, and so we feel separate, and we go out searching in the world to figure out, how do I find my wholeness again? And it's like, no, you just need to go within. Like it's
Mhm.
all here. And that's what my accident, like when you're alone for hours on end, like we had to have blackout fabric in my bedroom. Like I couldn't handle natural light. So I
Wow.
couldn't really do much of anything except be by myself. And when you're by yourself, you start asking questions. You start thinking about things in a different way. And it's like, all these things really started to click in for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Religion, I think, puts spirituality in a box, and we're
Yeah.
only allowed certain pieces of it. And I
Yeah.
like that. I love what a good teacher you had. That that's really beautiful. Like what I'll take people through is a meditation where you close your eyes and then you like break us down into particles, right?
Mm,
And once we're broken down into particles, like there's no separation. We're just
yeah,
right?
it's all
So
connected.
and even, like, no matter how old the student is or how young, 'cause I teach from with high schoolers all the way to, 100-year-olds, if they'll come. And and they get that. Like, when
Yeah,
we break it down, we're just energy, we're all connected. There's no
yeah,
separation except for the one that we create with our mind. So,
exactly.
tell me about the journey afterward. How did you not just reject your new normal, which I love that phrase because also working with seniors, we use that a lot in senior living,
Mhm.
but it's very different. It's not, you don't really tell them that with their mind because
Right.
if their mind is going, their mind is going. You tell them that with their body, right? Like,
Yeah,
this is your new normal. You can't walk the way you used to, or you need a device, or you need,
right,
a cane or a walker, or maybe it's the chair. This is your new normal. They can't, like, rejection is such a natural part of that.
mhm. Yeah, well, you don't wanna give up your independence. Yeah.
Exactly. So you, though, were only 23 years old and, like, thank goodness you rejected it. But then how did you get your mind back or renew it in a different way? Because I'm sure it's not exactly the same as it was, but it's probably even better.
Oh my gosh, I think I'm better than I was before my accident, and there's layers to this, right? So, the next year after I was told that was this internal journey, and it was all the mind stuff, and then through that, I didn't realize what I had done, but I had tapped into the laws of the universe, and I had attracted in the answer to my physical problems and was able to fully recover. So, let's start at the beginning though. So I call this mind control. I actually recently wrote an ebook about this because I'm like, man, the stuff that I learned, if other people applied this to every aspect of their life, it would be incredible. And I break it down into three parts. The first thing was I started to observe. I honestly didn't really have a choice, right? I had been pulled from life, and so I couldn't do much. And so I started watching people. I started watching my family members, my friends, the news. And it was so interesting because what I noticed was people were like on a pattern. Okay. And it's like I could see the argument come before it came because of what this person came into the room with and what that person came into the room with, and then it just exploded, and it had nothing to do with that.
Mhm.
And so I started to observe, and I was thinking, okay, the way that I saw it was as if people had sunglasses on. And so they were interacting and reacting with the world through this lens. And sometimes it was like a deep seated lens, like I never feel heard, or I'm not loved. And so then everything that happened in life was just this validation. See, I'm not loved. See, nobody listens to me.
Yes.
And it was so interesting. And then I realized, oh my God, I'm not immune to this. This is happening
That's
to
good
me.
that you you
And so
caught
then
on to
I
that.
said, okay, like I'm not going to have any judgment on anybody else. Like, let's go into my world. And so I started to realize the things within me that were unfinished. And so I created this like separation. Okay. It's like once I realized that my emotional trigger, the emotional response, like wasn't actually me. Like I used to let that sort of drive me, like, oh, it's my personality, it's who I am. Like, no, that's really just to me like some stuff unfinished within me, or the way like the yogis talk about it, these karmic seeds that we have. And
Mhm.
when the right weather pattern around us occurs, just like in nature, right, the seed sprouts. And so what's so interesting is like the yogis say, groups of souls travel together lifetime to lifetime to create these weather patterns for one another so that these triggers happen. And so that's why a lot of times, people at work, our family, like the people closest to us are constantly triggering us. But guys, the trigger's the teacher. This is what I
Right.
learned.
Yes.
Is
Yes.
that that's the moment. And like we blame the other person because we're like, well, they made me feel that way. No, the
Mm.
feeling was within you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so when you have that, and this is what I had, I started to just go, okay, well, like, what is that thing in me? Because it's not comfortable. And the longer it's here, like, the more miserable I am. Like
Mhm.
that feeling of anger, or the feeling of fear, or the feeling of, not being loved, whatever, like was popping up in the moment. Uh, I would address it and I'd go, okay, well, what do I do with this now? So it was like I realized that those thoughts were not my own. And then I disidentified to go, okay, in the moment when they pop up, I'm like, I'm gonna deal with you later and try and, interact with the situation in a way that was way more grounded and just like what was actually happening in the present. But then, it's like I identified the sunglasses. So I'm like, all right, what do I do with those? Because I don't want to wear them anymore.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
here's what I started to use. I started to use a technique called yoga nidra, which is a guided meditation. And the yogis developed it because they said, look, if there was this is what I love. If there was a single truth that if known solved everything, what would that truth be? Right? That's what the yogis just started to meditate on, to ask. And what they realized is that there is a single truth, and that is that you are something more than your thoughts. And if you realize that, all of a sudden it literally does solve every challenge in the world. And they said, well, people need a tool to practice this and to get into this space. And so they designed Yoga Nidra as that tool to guide you, much like probably what you do, to guide somebody out of their mind, out of their physical body, and into that space of awareness beyond it. Right.
Yeah.
And then when you're in that space, what I love about the Yoga Nidra is it's not just getting to the meditative state, but it's putting in an intention when you're down there.
Right.
And when you do that, it's like the conscious mind is kind of in this liquid form. So you can put it in, and then when you wake up and it's solid ice again, you've already like inserted this new intention. And so that's what I started to do. And the intention I used was I am open and patient, and that was what allowed me to be open as life unfolded, patient as I found the answers I needed to find, patient with the people around me. I mean, it just was like, that's what I needed. When I do yoga nidras for people, like we develop, an intention specific to them. But that's what allowed me to start shifting. And it was amazing. I did yoga nidra every single day, sometimes multiple times a day. And I didn't realize that I was literally like rewiring my brain. And all of a sudden, I mean, I had been dealing with intense panic attacks. Like my whole body would go numb. I would hyperventilate. Like it was bad. I had depression. I had anxiety. And as I was doing these meditations, all of a sudden it was like this peace was just in my life. Like not when I was meditating, but all the time. And it was like the anxiety just vanished. The depression vanished. I didn't have panic attacks anymore. Like it
Wow.
was it was so profound. Like just changed my world completely emotionally, you
Yes.
know? And
Yeah.
I connected in to me, it's like to source, to the universe, to the truth of who I am, to the ocean, right? It's
Right.
like I could drop into that ocean and it was like, oh, everything's okay here.
Isn't
You
that
know?
amazing? This is why I love meditation and yoga. For me, that's my primary practice. And I've never heard yoga nidra described that way, so I really appreciate that because I've always used it just for sleep. Like if my mind's whirling, I'm like, I'll do yoga nidra for sleep.
Yeah,
And my intention is pretty much to relax and go to sleep.
exactly.
But I had a moment in the car this morning after dropping off my third child to the third school, and just the worry for that child as a parent for what they're going through right now as a 16-year-old just
Mm,
rose up and like tears welled. And then I thought, take a breath, find the space.
yeah,
And then I had gratitude for my practice and for that space and for that ocean and just being able to handle anything.
yeah.
Because when I can come back into presence,
Mhm.
that capital P, like it's okay. It's their journey. It's
Exactly.
right. That's not
Right?
mine.
Yep.
And I can feel peace and I can feel ever present love
Yeah.
and I can feel calm and clear and not own
Yeah, you're not responsible for that journey.
exactly another person's stuff, whether it's your spouse, your child, your
Yeah,
best friend at work. It doesn't matter. Like if we practice, and that's why these tools are so important to practice when we don't need them,
yeah,
so that they're accessible when we do. So
yeah.
that's so beautiful. So how long had you been kind of in this practice space before you clearly noticed the
Mm.
difference?
It was a few months.
Okay.
Well, so the first time I did the meditation, I slept through the night the first time, and that was the first time in over a year I'd slept through the night. My brain had been just it would wake me up every hour. And so that's when I was like, there's something to this practice, right? I just went somewhere. I don't know where I went, but like I want to go back there. It was day one, yoga nidra number one.
Nice.
And then I would start to use it. Like I didn't realize it was going to bring me that internal peace. I started to use it. Honestly, I was leveraging it to mitigate my migraines. So when I felt, because I was so overstimulated by my environment, when I felt a migraine coming on, I'd go into a dark room, I'd lay down, and I would do a yoga nidra.
Okay.
And it would prevent the migraine from like getting full blown. And so that was actually, it was because of the physical issue that I was so like religious about doing it.
I just love that though, because it's so often the case that we're addressing a physical external symptom
Uh-huh.
that actually is what we need for the internal.
Yes, it's amazing how we get guided to what we need.
I know, like we're so smart.
Yep, yep. It's like if the physical body's making enough noise, we pay attention, and then usually it guides us in.
Exactly. Love it. Okay, go on.
Yeah, so it was that, and then after a few months, I realized like the peace within me, and I went, oh, like I want to continue to have
Yes.
that. And it's so interesting. I didn't understand. People talk about the law of attraction all the time, and I'd watched movies like What the Bleep and like all this stuff, but I didn't like I got it, but I didn't get it,
Mhm.
and I didn't understand that there was actually like a primary law, which is the law of vibration, and the law of attraction is a secondary law. And so what I like now looking back, right? Let me just be very clear. I didn't know what I was doing at the time.
Mhm.
But looking back, I see what I did. So when I was doing the yoga nidra and I was getting into this space of gratitude, of love, of joy, of just happiness, I was raising my vibration. And so for people that maybe don't understand this, because I didn't back then, like every emotion holds a vibration. You can walk into a room and you pick up somebody's emotion, like you're probably feeling it before you notice anything.
Mhm.
And so fear, anger, anxiety, these they're low vibrational states. And it turns out we attract in our vibration, like what we're a vibrational match for. And
Yes.
so, unbeknownst to me, like I'm hanging out in this low vibration, just continuing to have results that were not good.
Mhm.
And I broke out of it, not because I knew what I was doing, but because of this practice, right? Because the yogis knew what they were doing.
Yes.
And, I break out of it, and all of a sudden, like I'm at this higher vibration. Okay. So then the answer got drawn in. And it's so funny because I missed it. Like, I was expecting one day to just wake up and be cured, right? It was ridiculous. but that's what I was
That
just
happens.
expecting.
I mean, miracles happen, but
They
usually
do, right? I was like, I'm waiting for my miracle, and I'm just going to be happy till I
I'm
get it.
going to sit back, relax, wait for the miracle.
Exactly. Like we co-create, right? You need to
Yes.
kind of involved in what you're doing. So the answer comes an acupuncturist that my mom had known. Now, my mom owned a yoga studio in Annapolis, Maryland. So she'd gotten to know the wellness community really well. And they all knew about my accident. And people had been giving us stuff, telling me stuff like, the whole time. So this woman calls and she says, I've started using a technology in my practice called redox signaling. And she said, every single one of my clients are having results, all of them with different issues. It's stimulating cellular repair. And she said, I believe it would pass the blood brain barrier and could help Danielle. And so my mom intuitively was like, yeah, this is what we've been looking for. She brings it home. I got in the way. So my mind, my trained, biologist mind looked at the ingredients, and the ingredients said water and sodium chloride. And I said to my mom, I said, Mom, your friend just sold you salt water. What the heck does she think it's going to do for my head? And I totally ignored it. Like I went to Google and there was all this great information, but then there were sites that said, oh, it's a saltwater scam. And I was like, oh, validated, right? Like
Right.
this is it. So I ignored it. But my mom started using the stuff, and my mom had her own health things going on. She had bone on bone in her hands.
Oh,
And I don't know if you know anybody with that, but she couldn't even make a fist. I mean, bone on bone is tough.
gosh.
And 6 weeks of drinking this stuff, and she was just drinking like a couple ounces in the morning, a couple ounces at night, like nothing crazy. She's full range of motion back in her hands. Like I watched it happen. And still in my head, I'm like, that's a placebo. Like,
Right. Those do work.
yeah, it worked, but I think your mind worked it, But my
Yeah.
dad was like, Danielle, there's no way she imagined herself out of that amount of like discomfort. And my dad had a bad knee, and he goes, let's see what it does for my knee. So he starts using it. And my dad, 10 days into using it, he's like, I don't need my brace on my knee when I'm working out. Yeah. And I'm like, okay. so then my dad starts asking my mom for the research, and my mom, she's like intuitive, whatever. Why do we need to know that? It just works. And my dad's analytical. So
Okay,
they
so
go
you're
out.
well represented with the two of your parents.
Exactly, like the yin and the yang.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm so blessed because I have both of that in me.
Yeah.
So they start looking, and it turns out this company is called ASEA. They have these redox signaling molecules. They didn't make up redox. Redox evidently is this massive field of science, but it was new. So in the late 90s, the first Nobel Prize was awarded for like research in this area.
Oh, wow.
And then it opened up this huge field because they didn't have the equipment sophisticated enough to see these molecules. And they're made from the saline in your cells. All right. So the body is like, it's so elegant, and it needs hydrogen, oxygen, chloride, and sodium to make these different molecules. And so where does it source it from? Well, it sources it from the sac of saline that is you. You are salt water. And so the body it's kind of like if you think about if I gave you 4 letters and I said, okay, Tamara, like how many words could you make? 2-letter words, 3-letter words, 4-letter words, doesn't matter. How many words could you make with these 4 letters? And you're like, oh, let me combine, let me see. That's what the body's doing. And so it's making these molecules, and they're known as reductants and oxidants. And when they're net negatively charged, it's a reductant, net positive, an oxidant. That's where the term redox comes from. So my dad comes back with all this, and I'm like, oh.
Now it's making sense to the biologist's brain, right?
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, I'm hearing what I need to hear, And I thought, well, I just don't understand like what it's going to do in my body, right? But I said, fine, I'll give it a try. It can't hurt me. This was what the beautiful thing was. You can't be allergic to this stuff. It's non-toxic because it's literally identical to what the body's making. So the body looks at it as if it made it, and it wouldn't contraindicate with the medicine I was on for my migraine. And I start using it. Nothing happens out of the gate, but the 3rd month into it, the pounding that had been relentless in my head for 2 years stopped. And I started to have energy again. I wasn't having to nap. I started to be able to concentrate for more than like 10 minutes and follow conversation, get the words out I wanted to get out. It was like the fog in my brain lifted. And I'll never forget my cognitive therapist. I was seeing her weekly, and she looked at me and she said, Danielle, I've worked with brain injury for 30 years. And she said, I've never seen somebody have such a rapid recovery so far out from their initial trauma. That was 2 years out.
Right.
And she said, what the hell is that stuff you started drinking? And I think there are moments in life that you can look back as like an inflection point because she asked that question and my answer was, I have no idea. I thought it was salt water, you know? And like, I got so curious because she's sitting here telling me, like, this isn't normal what you're experiencing, right? And I'm experiencing it. And I'm like, yeah, for 2 years, like, I haven't felt this good. And so we both dove into the research. We talked to the doctors on their medical board. Like, we went nuts. We brought it to all of her clients. And I sort of stepped back and I said, okay, now that I'm getting my health back, which was something I had been like cautiously optimistic to maybe even hope for,
Mhm.
I thought, well, how do I want to use the life that I have? You know, what am I
That's a
meant to
beautiful
do every
question.
day? Yeah.
Can
And
you
it was
just ask that one more time?
like, how am I meant to use this life that I have? You know, and I realized like I went through this journey for a reason. And you said something at the beginning, like stuff was happening to me.
Mhm.
And it was happening for me.
Yes.
And so it was so interesting because I realized that this had all unfolded for my benefit. And so I was in a situation where I now could look back and go, okay, well, here I am uniquely designed, right? I have a degree in biology. I was a teacher. I now have experienced this incredible breakthrough working. And I'm sitting here going, wow, I was uniquely put in a position to be able to now educate people about a scientific breakthrough to help them through their health challenges.
Mm.
And that's what I did. It got so clear to me. And so I partnered with this company, ASEA. And for the last 8 years now, I have been educating people through sharing my story. And it's crazy, Tamara. Like I've helped over 1,000 people. I've helped people around the world. I've met the most incredible human beings through this journey, and I've drawn in these other people that are wanting to do similar work in their life to support others, to help other people become more, to help empower people, mind, body, and spirit. Because mind you, the work that I do is, yeah, I'm going to help your body get well, but then once you're well, we're going to talk about the next level of your life and how you need to start creating your life by design, and you need to take ownership of, you know, where you're going and your thoughts, and like you are creating your world.
Mhm.
And sometimes I look back and I'm like, well, like how did I get here? You know?
Isn't it so cool though when to have such clear defining moments where you can actually
Mhm.
look back and see every experience that led to you taking a step, that led to another open door that you chose to step through. And it just, piece by piece by piece, it's like that is why my mantra is everything happens for me. And I don't need to know how or why right
Right.
now because it'll unfold and be clear when I look back.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. If you had tried to pick apart, like, why did Danielle get hit by a drunk driver? Like, no one had an answer to that one, right?
No,
Like,
no,
but
no,
then
no.
you go, oh, like now, 10 years on, it's like, holy cow, I have sparked change in tens of thousands of people that I've never met because my story through social media
Right.
has gotten out to so many people. I'll get messages from people. I don't even know what video they watched, how they found me. I have no idea, but they're like, Danielle, your journey has touched me. You inspired me to take this action. And it's like, yeah, what you go through, you also grow through it. And this is
Yes.
something I want to make sure, yeah, people miss this. Like, if you're running into an obstacle, it's like, well, the obstacle's there because you're supposed to be figuring out something within you that either needs to be released or that you realize you have within you to level you up. And until you figure that out, like, you're going to keep hitting the obstacle.
I I have never ever heard anyone else say that because I say that all the time. How can I grow through this? And I'll
Yes,
ask clients and even people watching me on Instagram, are you going through something or are you willing to grow through something?
exactly.
I
Yeah.
love that. I love that. It's like
Yeah.
if a freaking dandelion can crack through a sidewalk, people,
Right. Exactly. Like, come
you
on.
can do it.
Yeah, and I always ask the question, like, what is this challenge making possible? You
Mm,
know? Because it's
beautifully
like,
expansive.
what's making possible is for you to grow, for you to pull something different out of you, which takes work, right? It takes work. But here's the thing, like, I think about life as a game. If we knew we were gonna win the game,
Mhm.
why would we play? Like the fun in any game is there's unexpected roadblock, like a different challenge, an obstacle where you have to get creative, you have to get innovative, you have to draw something out of you, to get around it, to get to the next level, whatever it is. Like that's why games are fun. Guys, life is fun. Like you got to look at it like that, and when things happen, it's like perceived negative things happen. I'm always like, cool, this is a redirection. Like, apparently I wasn't supposed to be going that way. Thank
Yeah.
you for blocking whatever that was supposed to not be, then moving me in this direction. And like nature, I love the dandelion example. Nature is an example of this all the time. I live out in the middle of the forest. I go out every morning with my dog, and I'm constantly looking at the plants, the trees, like the animals. Like they're teaching us so much, because they're still very much aligned with source, right?
Yeah.
They know they're the ocean. Like they're just operating from that. And when you watch, it's like, I've got a pear tree out here that just got riddled with ants. The ants ate all the inside of this tree. So what happened? It shot up a brand new like trunk a foot over. And I'm like, look at that thing go.
Right? Nature's so
Awesome.
amazing. I love it because sometimes it's the actual damage to the plant that causes it to grow stronger,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And just like a broken bone grows stronger when it heals, right?
Yes.
Like, so if it just is how we perceive the world, you use that word perception, and I love it so much because everything that happens to us can actually make us stronger. It's not just some silly
Yes.
saying.
It does.
If we decide. And I like what you said when you were telling your story of when you first started observing, and
Yeah.
you, because I believe that awareness is our first key to
Okay.
living a conscious life that we actually can love and embrace and play that game with joy. It's that awareness. And you said that you noticed that you were not, you, you used to say, oh, I'm just this way, whatever it is. But then you separated that. And this is what I wish everybody could do when we disidentify.
Mhm.
I'm not lazy, stupid, clumsy. Maybe I am clumsy, but I won't take that one. I'll own that one. But people will say like, "Oh, I'm just, I just am a procrastinator, or I just am this way. I don't like to go out with people." No, you're just choosing a
Easy.
repeated pattern,
Yep.
right? You're just choosing. So there's that ownership again, that where we can show up as a victor instead of a
Yes.
victim when we own it. Oh, I choose to stay home, and I actually do have one client who will say, this is why I choose not to have friends. It's not that I'm not social or I'm not friendly, because she's an incredibly friendly, bubbly, bright person who I adore,
Hmm.
and yet she chooses not to go out and make friends.
Yeah.
And she owns that for her
Hey,
own
as long
reasons.
as you know, like
Yeah.
that's the thing, like in my book. So I talk about observe, realize, control, and then create. And this is the piece that you're hitting on, where it's like that equation I shared at the beginning, the external world plus your internal response creates your reality. Once you move through that and you take the ownership of your internal response, what you realize is that your internal response is stronger than the outside world. Like you literally can start shifting and changing the people that get drawn into your world, the
Mhm.
experiences that come in, like how the path unfolds under your feet. And when you realize that like you are the creator of your world, it's like you start drawing on a string and you're like, I want this. And you start pulling it, and the universe says, okay. And it starts moving things to align to come to you. Now, when it happens, it's not up to you,
Right.
but you have to have the clarity and take the action step. And then the how and the when, it occurs. Like that's the co-creative part.
Right.
And guys, that's how you make your world. It's
Mhm.
just like you have to go through the process of ownership and realizing all the stuff that's in the way of you being clear with your own thoughts.
Mhm.
And then when you get super clear, you can create whatever you want.
Yeah, it's so awesome. We're always putting in orders to the universe, and
Yes.
it's a lot better if we know what we're asking for.
Exactly. Because when you're consciously telling it, but yeah.
Yeah. So, because if you're like, I love it. I talked to a group of activity directors for senior living just a few weeks ago, and I was talking about, burnout, which happens a lot, and people saying things like, "Oh, I really need a break. Oh, I really need a break," but then you never take the break. Well, the universe is going to give you a break, and sometimes literally.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Let me slow you down.
yeah. So be really mindful of when your body is speaking to you, and listen and answer that call before it's dramatic,
Right.
right? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, so now today, so you have this book, you're a speaker,
Mhm.
and so what is the work that you're actually doing? How do you do the work that you do?
So I partner with a CF, which is interesting. It's in the network marketing space, which is something that I think, oh, it was like taboo my whole life. I'm like, I don't want to touch that. That's
Right.
sleazy, But like, again, I didn't understand it. Like now that I get it, I'm like, oh, it's just referrals. Like
Yeah,
that's what
it's
we
like
do all
Mary
day
Kay.
long.
It's that
Yeah,
that
exactly. And so with this partnership with ASEA, I have been able to coach and train other people of like mind that want to have an impact in the world. And what I always tell people is like, this is a beautiful way to earn while you learn more about yourself. Like to me, it's part of my spiritual growth. And
Mhm.
what better way than to be like in this space of other people? I say it's like we have the right soil. So your seed of potential can grow, and you have to be around like minds. You need to put yourself in an environment of that sort of growth. Otherwise, like it's just not going to happen. Your old patterns will kick in, or you have to, I believe, sometimes have others support you through. And so it's something I love. It's like mind, body, spirit. Okay. So it's sometimes I'm helping people through meditation to help them get past their junk so they can continue in a business like this. Sometimes it's just conversations with people that are sick. Recently, I've been working with a ton of people in the spiritual community that are saying, look, Danielle, the redox technology, like you brought it to us with this lens of biology and the chemistry in the body, because that's like, that's me.
Mhm.
But they said, look, like I have people that are quantum healers, psychics, mediums. Like I have met the most incredible people. And what they tell me about this is like the next level of like, Danielle, this is, I have they call one couple, they call it the elixir of the gods. They're like, look, this was divinely intuited down to
Mm.
be able to get something into this physical being that can help raise our conscious level of awareness. Like it's helping decalcify the pineal gland. It's helping to activate the pineal gland. And like that is so exciting to me to know, okay, we can get people, back to their healthy blueprint, but now we can take people to the next level in their spiritual growth and journey. And we do it all through this. So what do I do? Like every day is a little different, but I'm having conversations with people about powering the potential in their body, getting through all the blocks in their mind, and of course connecting in, with spirit, whatever that is for them.
Right. Oh, that's so beautiful.
Yeah.
And so where do they find you? How do they get to work with you?
Easiest way to contact me is to go to danielle.teamasia.com. I'm sure we can put it in the
We
description.
will. Yeah.
Danielle.teamasia.com. And then social media, Instagram and Facebook is where you'll find me playing mostly. And my Instagram handle is just my name. And it turns out there's other Danielle Matthews out there. So I had
Shocking.
to have an underscore before and after my name. But that's where you'll find me. And on Facebook, if you just put in facebook.com/discover intention,
Oh,
you'll
nice.
find my Facebook.
Discover intention. Oh, I like that. Well, I'll be stalking you later. So that's wonderful. Okay. You've gone through so much in your young life because you're still very young. If you could tell anybody anything, like what do you think human beings just need to know, whether they're 16 or 60 or 90 or 105? What do they need to know about life?
Oh,
Capital L.
yeah, you are more than your thoughts. That's the thing you need to realize. There is something more to you than the thoughts running through your mind. And if you let your mind control you, you're going to have a really difficult experience while you're here on earth.
Mhm.
But when you realize that there's more to you, that you can actually connect in with infinite intelligence, and that there are tools ready, available, teachers there for you, like your life is going to open up in ways that you had no idea.
Beautiful. And that leads us to your book. So, how do they get the book?
Oh yeah. So on my Instagram, if you go to the link in my bio, you can find it. And it's on my website,
Okay.
brainbodyself.com/ebook. It's
Awesome.
a
I'll
free
put that
download,
in
guys.
the
That's
links
my
too.
gift. It's like I know that
Nice.
what I learned, it's like if you can get mentors, coaches around you, it helps you, just accelerate faster through things. Like, I wish someone had told me these things and I'd have to figure it out the hard way.
100%. Totally identify with that. That is what I always tell people. Look, it took me 10 years to get here. It doesn't have to take you 10 years.
Exactly. You want to go the hard way, go for it, but let me collapse.
You want to do it all yourself, fine. But a lot of us take our car to the mechanic. It gets it done faster and more efficiently. It's worth the investment. Awesome. Thank you so much, Danielle. This has been really eye-opening, and also I love talking to someone who has a lot of similar ideas but has done things in a different way. So thank you for sharing your story and for being an incredible ripple in this pond of life. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Appreciate you and all you're doing here.
Thank you very much. All right, listeners, viewers, tell us what you think in the comments, rate, review, all that jazz. You know the drill. I'm grateful you're here, and I'll talk to you again next week. Thanks, Danielle.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you for joining us on Spirit Cafe. Please leave all comments on our Spirit Cafe Facebook page or in the comments below our YouTube videos.